Hi everyone, my name is Anastasia and in this video I will show you how to knit this pair of socks. These socks are knitted from the calf to the toe on 60 stitches. For knitting we will need needles. We will be using circular needles and I'm using US size 1. It is 2.25 millimeters needles with an 80 centimeters cable. We will also need stitch markers, scissors and needle for grafting the toe. And of course we will need yarn. I used standard socks yarn, which contains of 75% wool and 25% polyamide. It's 100 grams and 420 meters. And you can use yarn from any yarn brand you find and you like with similar characteristics. I used Alize Superwash Artisan yarn. My socks are knitted in woman US size 8 and it is about European 38 and a half size. There are also timestamps below the video allowing you to quickly find the necessary information as well as a link to pattern I used for these socks. And let's get started. So we will start knitting our socks with the ribbing. For these socks I choose the German twisted cast on method because it is very stretchy. We place the yarn tail over the thumb and yarn from the skein over the index finger. Insert the needle under the yarn between our fingers, then bring it under the loop on the thumb. Next, guide it through the loop on the thumb and twist your thumb toward yourself. Hook the yarn from the index finger with the needle, pull it through the newly formed loop and tighten the yarn. Now we have 2 stitches on our needle. Continue the cast on. Once again, bring the needle under the loop on the thumb, then guide it through the loop on the thumb and twist your thumb towards yourself, then hook the yarn from index finger, pull it through the newly formed loop and tighten the yarn. Repeat the process until you have cast on 61 stitches. Now we need, so I have now all stitches on needles and now we need to join our knitting in the round. I will be using the magic loop method for these socks, so to join the knitting I need to divide all my stitches and pull the cable through, like this. Make sure the stitches are not twisted. Here is our first cast on stitch. We need to move it next to the last cast on stitch, like this. And again, your stitches shouldn't be twisted. Now return these stitches to the end of the needle and use the other needle to pass the last stitch over the first one. So we just take our last stitch and pass it over the first stitch. Tighten the yarn. Return to previous needle and begin knitting 2 by 2 ribbing. 2 knit stitches, and then 2 purl stitches. When you reach the end of this needle, pull the cable through and continue knitting the stitches on the other side. I have completed the first row of ribbing. Continue knitting in 2 by 2 ribbing for as many rows as needed to achieve the desired ribbing height. For me, this is 16 rows. Once we have completed the full length of the ribbing, we move to knitting the main pattern. First row, we just knit all stitches. And now the first row of knitting the snowflakes pattern. We start with the left leaning decrease. Slip 1 stitch with the left leg of stitch forward, knit next one, and pass the slipped stitch over the knitting one. Make a yarn over, knit the stitch, make another yarn over, and knit 2 stitches together. Then just knit 7 stitches. And repeat previous steps. So slip the first stitch, knit the second one, pass the slipped stitch over the knit stitch, yarn over, knit, another yarn over, 2 stitches together. Again, 7 knit stitches. And again, slip the first stitch, knit the second one, pass the slipped stitch over, yarn over, knit, yarn over, 2 stitches together, 7 knit stitches. We do not change the total number of stitches on the needles because we make 2 decreases and 2 yarn over. And we should finish this row by knitting 7 stitches. The second row of this pattern is just to knit all stitches. All yarn over we knit just as a regular stitch. The third row of the pattern, we start with 1 knit stitch, then make yarn over, slip 2 stitches, knit 1 stitch, and pass the 2 slipped stitches over the knitted stitch. Make another yarn over and knit 9 stitches. And again, yarn over, slip the next 2 stitches, knit 1, pass 2 stitches over the knit one, yarn over, 9 stitches. The third row should end with the knitting 8 stitches, as we already knitted the first stitch at the beginning of the row. The fourth row and all even rows in this pattern we knitted in knit stitches. The fifth row of the pattern repeats the first row of the pattern. So again, we start with the left leading decrease, slip the first stitch with left leg of the stitch forward, knit the next one, pass the slipped stitch over the knitted one, yarn over, knit one, yarn over, 2 stitches together, 7 knit stitches. And repeat these steps to the end of the row. The sixth row is all knit stitches. Now we have finished knitting the first row of snowflakes, this row, and let's move on to the seventh row of the pattern. It begins with knitting 7 stitches, and then we repeat familiar steps. Slip the first stitch with the left leg forward, knit the next one, pass the slipped yarn over the knitted one, yarn over, knit 1 stitch, yarn over, 2 stitches together, and then knit 7 stitches. And just repeat all the steps. This row should end with knitting 2 stitches together. And again, our even row, 8th row, is all knit stitches. 9th row, we knit the first 8 stitches, then make yarn over, slip the next 2 stitches, knit 1, and pass over these 2 slipped stitches over the knitted one. 1 more yarn over and knit 9 stitches. And again, repeat previous steps. Yarn over, slip 2 stitches, knit the next one, pass 2 slipped stitches over the knitted one, yarn over, knit 9 stitches. This row ends with 1 knit stitch. 10th row is stockinette row, and the second to the last row, it's 11th row of the pattern, repeats the 7th row. So we need 7 stitches, then slip the first stitch, knit the next one, and pass over slipped stitch, yarn over, knit stitch, yarn over, 2 stitches together, knit 7 stitches, and again slip, knit, pass, yarn over, knit, yarn over, 2 together, knit 7. And the final row of our pattern is the 12th row, is again stockinette stitches. And now just repeat our pattern to the desired height of the leg. So in my case it will be 5 times. So the total number of rows before starting the gusset is 60. The next stage of knitting our socks is the gusset. On socks, this area looks like this. I really recommend adding a gusset for those with a high instep. My instep is not very high, so I will increase by only 3 stitches on each side for the gussets. If you need a higher gusset, I recommend adding 4 or 5 stitches on each side, and I will show you how we will make our increases. So I have knitted to the required length up to the heel, and now I'm starting the first row of the gusset. As I mentioned, we will make 3 increases on each side. The increases are made every other row, maintaining the pattern. I will start increasing with the second needle. Before starting, ensure that you have 30 stitches on each needle. I'm starting the first row following the pattern. On the second needle, I make my first increase. At the beginning of the needle, there will be a right leaning increase, and at the end of the needle, a left leaning increase. I will show you the method I use to make increases, but you can choose any method you find comfortable. So it's not very easy, but increases looks very beautiful and neat. For the right leaning increase, twist the stitch. So I pick my needle using the back leg of the stitch, then place it on the needle without removing the stitch from the left needle. Then I insert my left needle under the back leg of the stitch, twisting it outward, and knit another stitch. Let's do it again. We are starting with twisted stitch. Then insert the needle into the back leg of this stitch, twisting it outward, and knit another stitch. Now we have 2 stitches on our right needle. Then knit to the end of the needle following the pattern. And now we will create a left leaning increase using our last stitch. First, knit as usual. Then, without removing it from the needle, knit it again through the back loop. I will show you again. Knit as usual, and then not removing it from the needle, knit again through the back loop. In the next row, knit all the stitches, including the increases. The third row repeats the first row, meaning we knit the stitches on the first needle according to the pattern and on the second needle according to the pattern, and in the same time we make increases from the first and the last stitches on the second needle. I make right leaning increases in the beginning. And left leaning increases at the end. My fourth row repeats the second row. And in the fifth row, we make the final increases on the second needle. And then repeat the same steps for the first and for the last stitch on your second needle. So we twist our first stitch, then insert the needle, picking up the back leg of the loop, and knit one more stitch. Then knit our snowflake and our left leaning increasing, knit as usual, and knit as twisted stitch. The sixth row will repeat our fourth and the second row, and then we will start to knit our heel. Now we have finished all necessary increases and we'll begin working on the heel. The heel will be knitted on the second needle where we made our increases, but we will continue knitting the pattern from the chart on the first needle. We have completed 6 rows, which means half of the pattern. Now on the first needle I will knit the 7th row of the pattern, and on the second needle I will start working on the heel using back and forth rows. On the second needle, I currently have 6 extra stitches because we made increases at the beginning and end of the row. These 6 stitches need to be temporarily moved to the first needle, and we will knit the heel using only 30 stitches. So I'll just knit first 3 stitches and move them on my first needle. And simply pull the cable to transfer the last 3 stitches on the first needle. That's all. Now we have 30 stitches on our needle. Now knit all the stitches in stockinette stitch, placing markers at the same time to separate the central part of the heel. The central part consists of 10 stitches, which is 1/3 of the total stitches.
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
I place my first marker.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
And my second marker. I knit the last 9 stitches, and from the last stitch I will form a turning stitch. To do this, I pick up the right leg of the stitch below, place it on the left needle, knit it as a knit stitch, and then return the knit stitch to the left needle. This creates a double stitch on the left needle. I will show you once again. So now I have only 1 stitch on my left needle. Pick up the right leg of the stitch below, place it on the left needle, knit it as regular stitch, and then return this new stitch on the left needle. And then I turn my work. Tighten the yarn at the turning points to prevent any holes from forming later. Now continue knitting. Knit purl stitches until you reach the last stitch. Now, from the last stitch, we will again form a turning stitch. To do this, slip the stitch with yarn in front of the work. Then pick up the left leg of the stitch below, purl it, and return both stitches on the left needle with the yarn in front of the work. I will show you again. So we slip the stitch on the right needle with the yarn in front, then pick up the stitch below and purl it, and then return our 2 stitches on the left needle with yarn in front. Turn our work, tighten the yarn, and knit to the second to last stitch at the end of the row. So now on my left needle I have double stitch at the beginning. You can see that it originates from the 1 stitch below, and a regular stitch, which is the second to the last stitch. From this second to the last stitch we will form a double stitch, just as we did it in the first row. So I pick up the right leg of the stitch below, knit it as a regular stitch, and return this stitch on the left needle. So now I have 2 double stitches on my left needle. Turn my work, tighten the yarn, and purl all stitches to the second to the last stitch on the other side. On this side we have a similar situation. My first stitch is a double stitch formed from a single stitch below, and the second stitch is a regular purl stitch, and I will now turn this regular purl stitch into a turning stitch. I put the yarn in front, then pick up the stitch below, purl it, and return these 2 stitches on the left needle with yarn in front. Turn my work, tighten the yarn, and continue knitting until we reach the double stitches on these sides. Now on my right side I have 2 double stitches, and this stitch now I will turn into double stitch 2. So I pick the right leg of the stitch below, knit it, and return this stitch on the left needle. Next, I will turn the work and repeat the same steps on the other side. Moving this way, we need to turn all stitches before and after the marker into double stitches without touching the central part on the needle. I will reconnect with you once I have knitted all these stitches in this way. Now on my needles, all stitches before and after the marker are double. And my heel looks like this. Now we will start knitting short rows again to form the second part of the heel, creating the rounded shape of the heel. And again, we will work only in turning rows, back and forth rows. After making the last turn, I knit all the stitches of the central part. Remove marker, we no longer need it. And knit the double stitch as a regular stitch through the both legs, like this. And then I turn my next double stitch into a turning stitch, repeating the same steps as we did before. So I pick up the right leg of the stitch below, place it on the left needle, knit as a regular stitch, and then return this stitch on the left needle. Now my stitch looks like triple stitch. Turn my work, then I just purl all stitches until the next marker. Again, remove the marker, purl the double stitch after the marker, and then next double stitch I will turn into my turning stitch. I slip both legs of the stitch on the right needle, pick up the stitch below, purl it, and then return 3 legs of stitch on the left needle with yarn before my work. Then turn my work. Knit stitches until you reach the triple stitch. Knit this stitch through all 3 legs as a regular knit stitch. Tighten the yarn. And then turn this double stitch into like triple stitch. Pick up the right leg of the stitch below, knit it, and then return this stitch on the left needle. Turn your work, purl all stitches until you reach triple stitch on the wrong side. This is it. Purl it as a regular purl stitch and turn next double stitch into turning stitch. Slip both legs, pick up the stitch below, purl it, and return all 3 legs on the left needle. Turn your work. And now repeat all these steps until you reach the last stitch on each side. I will reconnect with you at this stage. I almost finished with all rows. Now I'm knitting my right side. I knit triple stitch as one, and then form my turning stitch on this side. turn my work, and this is will be my last row on the wrong side. I purl until my triple stitch, purl it as regular, and then turn the last stitch into turning stitch. Turn my work. Now we return to knitting in the round. We have 3 extra stitches on each side, and starting from this row we will begin shaping the gusset by making decreases. It will be this part of our sock. I recommend returning these stitches to this needle. Simply pull the cable and place these 3 stitches back on this needle. Knit all the stitches, and now knit the triple stitch together with the next stitch as a left leaning decrease to the back leg of this stitch. So I insert the needle into all 4 stitches and knit it from all 4 stitches, like this. Then just knit these 2 more stitches. On the first needle, we continue knitting the pattern. At the very beginning of the heel, we already completed the first row of the pattern, so now we are knitting the second row where all stitches are knitted. Don't forget to transfer the last 3 stitches onto this side. Don't need these 3 stitches yet, simply pull out the needle and transfer the last 3 stitches onto the second needle. Here we need the first 2 stitches, and the third stitch will be knitted together with the triple stitch as a right leaning decrease. To do this, simply insert the needle into 4 stitches and knit it through the front loop as regular knit stitch. We will make decreases every other row, so in this row knit all the stitches on this needle to the end of the row, and on the first needle knit the 9th row of the pattern. I have completed the row without decreases, and now I am knitting the next row where I will decrease stitches again at the beginning and end of the needle. First, I will make a left leaning decrease by knitting the second and the third stitches together with the left leaning way. So I turn this stitch left leg in front and then just knit it through the back legs. Knit the last stitch. On the first needle, I continue to knit my pattern, and this will be the second row of the pattern where I stockinette all the stitches. On this side, I will make a right leaning decrease. Just knit the first stitch, and then knit the second and the third stitch together as a regular knit stitch. Now, after the row with decreases, I will make one regular row just in stockinette with stockinette stitches. In the same time, on my first needle, I will knit the 11th row of the pattern. I have finished the row without decreases, and now I'm making the final decreases on each side in this row. Here will be the left leaning decreases, so I turn my first stitch, insert the needle and knit this stitch through the back legs of the stitch. On the first needle I have my 12th row, so I just knit all stitches. And my last right leaning decrease, I just knit 2 stitches together, tighten the yarn. That's it. We have finished shaping the gusset and the heel, and now we continue knitting in the round. We're back to the original number of stitches, 60, and we'll proceed with circular knitting. On the second needle, we will always knit stockinette stitches, while on the first needle, we will continue working the pattern for the required numbers of repeats. I will knit one row with you just to show. So I finished, in previous row I finished my pattern, and now on my first needle I'm starting to form my first snowflake from the first stitch on the needle. So I turn my first stitch, knit the next, pass this stitch through the knit stitch, make a yarn over, knit one stitch, make another yarn over, knit 2 stitches together, and knit 7 stitches, and then repeat all these steps. And on the second needle I just knit all stitches. And then I will start my second row, where all stitches will be stockinettes. Continue knitting in the round until it's time to start shape the toe. This of course depends on the size, the length of your foot. In my case, it's about size 8. I will knit 4 more patterns repeat. You can also try on this sock, and when you have approximately 4 centimeters or about 1.5 inches to the end of your foot, start shaping the toe decreases. So I have knitted the sock to the required foot length, and now I'm moving on to the decreases for the toe. Below this video and now on the screen I will attach a table that shows how to structure the decreases to create a rounded, beautiful and comfortable toe. I will now knit the first few rows with decreases according to this chart to demonstrate the algorithm. Starting from this row, we stop following the pattern and switch to knitting in the round using only stockinette stitches. So the first row with decreases, on the first needle we knit 1 stitch, and at the beginning of the needle we make a left leaning decrease, left leaning. I slip the first stitch, turning it, then knit 1, and pass this slipped stitch over the knitted stitch. Continue knitting to the end of the row. Now I have 3 stitches on the left needle and I make a right leading decrease. So I just knit 2 stitches together and then 1 knit stitch. On the second needle, we start immediately with the left leaning decrease. So I turn my first stitch, knit next one, and then just slip this stitch, past stitch over the knit stitch, knit all stitches, and finish with the right leaning decrease at the end of the row. And this is how all the rows marked as decrease in the table should look like. Next, according to my chart, I have 2 rows without decreases. So I just simply knit 2 rows in stockinette stitch. In the 4th row, it is indicated that I should make another decrease. I repeat all the same steps. On the first needle, we knit 1 stitch, and then make a left leaning decrease. So I turn my first stitch, knit my next stitch, and pass the slipped stitch over the knitted stitch. Then knit to the end of the row until you have 3 stitches on your left needle. And make right leaning decrease. Just knit 2 stitches together and 1 knit stitch. And on the second needle I start with left leaning decrease, tighten the yarn, knit to the end, and I knit 2 last stitches together as a regular knit stitch. My 5th and 6th rows are marked as rows without decreases, so I will simply knit them in stockinette stitch. I will continue this way until all the rows in the chart are completed. And there will be 10 stitches remaining on each needle. And now all that's left is to close the toe stitches using the Kitchener stitch. Cut the yarn and thread it through a blunt tipped needle. Insert the needle into the stitch on the opposite side from the working yarn, catching the stitch through the right leg. Slip the stitch off the needle without pulling the yarn too tightly. Move to the other needle and insert the needle from bottom to the top, catching the stitch through the left leg. Return to the previous stitch and pair the slipped stitch in this stitch through the left leg with the stitch on the needle through the right leg, slipping it off the needle. And again move back to the other needle. And here we repeat the same action. Sometimes it can be hard to find our first stitch. Here it is. So we take this stitch through the right leg and slip the next stitch, insert the needle from bottom to the top through the left leg and slip it from the needle. Now it will be easier to find your previous slipped stitch. Here it is. So I take it through the left leg and slip next one through the right leg, slip it from the needle, and do the same steps on this side. So this is my slipped stitch. I catch it through the right leg and pair it with the next stitch through the left leg. And then I just repeat these 2 steps on the both needles. We are left with 1 stitch on each needle. First we slip them off in the same way as we did before. And now we need to go through each of these stitches once more from top to the bottom. And then pull the yarn through to the inside of the sock, secure it and cut the yarn. Secure as well the tail from the cast-on edge and your sock is finished. I hope you found this tutorial useful and easy to follow and that you've made a wonderful pair of socks. If so, be sure to share your result with me on social media, which you can find below this video. And if you'd like to thank me or support me as a creator, I would really appreciate it. You can find ways to do this below this video as well. Thank you and see you in the next video. Bye!